Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm your ever-living host, Shorty, and I was going to review the new Cody Ziglar Deadpool today, but I fell into a little rut, a little recursive loop, which was basically, I'm not a big fan of Deadpool, but Cody Ziglar's amazing, and I should totally check it out. But I'm really not a big fan of Deadpool, but the artwork does some really interesting things and plays with formulas that I really like, but I'm not a big fan of Deadpool. But it's nice to see a different type of, and it just going backwards and forwards. And in the end, I thought, let's review some really dark, messed up fantasy body horror. And I'm glad I did. I'm very glad I picked this one up. This is one of those things where it's not something that customers come into my store asking for, but a comic book called The Principles of Necromancy with Jackson Lanzig and Colin Kelly writing it. I was like, I'm going to pay attention to that. And I'm really glad I did. I like dark fantasy. In fact, I love it. One of my favourite fantasy writers at the moment is Joe Abercrombie, who does his own dark, epic fantasy stuff anyway. He's done a Wild West story, he's done a revenge story, he's even done a war story, all of which still within the same dark fantasy world. So I'm hoping at some point he'll have a weird dream and give me a horror. And hopefully it'll be something like this, because it is brilliant. It is visually outstanding. From the first moment where we get this shadowy cloaked figure walking towards a camp of barbarians in the snow-covered woods. It is pitch perfect as an intro page, including the writing, and I hope they don't mind me sharing this with you here, but I am the first to see him, the stranger from the cold. I mean, come on, that hooks you, doesn't it? And then it just becomes this huge, ultra-violent, epic horror. But what's really nice is the horror still comes across in a really slow burn kind of way, and even though it is a comic book full of action and violence, it still managed to get shocking when you see it at the end. And when I say full-on violence and action, I do have to lay out one tiny bit of criticism of the artwork here. I do like so much stuff it does, down to creature design and character design. I mean, there's a bit later on where there's this giant monster where its fingers have hands. It's this messed up situation. But during some of the fight sequences which involve an awful lot of characters in motion, it looks a tiny bit cluttered. There's moments where it's harder to tell the difference between foreground and background. It's not the end of the world. I think there's an intentionality there to show that they're supposed to be expressing how confusing a battlefield would be, and I can't deny that. But it's a visual medium for comic book, and it wasn't... Those two pages were not my favourite pages. But other than that, brilliant, spectacular, absolutely love it. And as I say, the reason why it works is the story as well. The slow burn towards the reveal of the horror is done fantastically. And one tool they have in their arsenal when they do this is what the comic book's about and who's telling you the story. Because it starts with that voiceover narration from one of the characters who I assumed was the main character. And they do this by, it's him narrating the story. It's his POV throughout. But then we get the realization at the end that this is actually the story of the Necromancer. And it shouldn't be a surprise. It's literally called The Principles of Necromancy. But part of me thought, I don't know, I was expecting more of an anthology-style thing, maybe different stories about this character, but in the way that you get, like, different Tales from the Crypt with the Crypt Keeper as a connecting thread. I thought there'd be a way of doing that, but no, we actually have this deeply horrifying character engaged in some abominable, weird science, techno-magic stuff. I can't describe it any better than that, not because I'm incapable, but I want to not spoil anything for you. But they clearly have their own arc going on. Yes, the main character is kind of cool. He gets some growth even. Now, don't get me wrong, he's the main character of this one comic book, and he doesn't even, like, carry on narrating the events right till the end. So you don't get, like, a whole bunch of depth to his growth, to his development. But that is not to say it's not great. They use broad strokes, but they use them really effectively. They're more concerned, I think, with mood, which is fantastic, and the story that's happening behind this guy, and how they are pacing it, because the pacing is fantastic. It's good enough that I've definitely put it on my pull list, and I've made sure I've got enough spare orders for the next issue when it comes into the store. My only concern, and this is not thing I can really use as criticism for the comic books, I'm talking about like stuff that isn't even out yet, but because of how effective the pacing of this story was with the reveal of the nature of the horror and how visually alarming it was, I'm hoping that for the future issues they can maintain that pacing, because that was a big selling point. But once you get past issue 1, there's a sense you can kind of fall into the story a little bit, like you've got expectations, and trying to maintain tension throughout is difficult. It's why horror, I think, works better as a movie rather than a TV series. I think it's a risk, But I'm trusting that they're going to handle this really well. They've convinced me 100% that this is a fantastic comic book. I love the world. I love the characterizations. I love the artwork. I really should mention this guy, by the way. Eamon Winkle is the artist. He's fantastic. I'm going to be checking out a whole bunch of stuff he does. That's it for me for now, though. I'm going to try and review some other stuff because I've got all the Ghost Machine things that came out this week. So make sure you do the social media things so you don't miss anything. Until I see you again, though, look after each other, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.